Hi everybody! Today we're going to be discussing Melas, which is also known as mitochondrial encephalomyopathy, lactic acidosis, and stroke-like episodes. So, what exactly is Melas? Well, Melas is a genetic, but specifically mitochondrial disease. In this video, we'll discuss the cause, symptoms, treatment, diagnosis, and more. While the exact number of incidents is still unknown, this disease mostly affects those younger than 40. Additionally, both men and women are affected equally. Before we get into the mechanisms, it's important to know what the mitochondria are, as this is a mitochondrial disorder. The mitochondria is an organelle within your cells that is responsible for energy or ATP production. They were once prokaryotes that came into our body and became this organelle. Why do we care about this? Well, because of this, they are one of the only organelles containing DNA, and the mutations within this disorder are in the mitochondrial DNA. Moving on, how does one get this disease? Well, Melas is maternally inherited. This means that if your mother is a carrier of the mutated gene, you will get the disease. However, if your father has it, he will not pass it on, as the mitochondrial genes from the father are lost during fertilization. It can also be inherited spontaneously, but this is not as common. Now, let's look at what gene is mutated. In 80% of cases, there is a point mutation from adenine to guanine at nucleotide 3243 of the MTTL1 gene. In 10% of cases, this point mutation is from thymine to cytosine at nucleotide 3271 of the MTTL1 gene as well. These genes code for tRNA in the mitochondria, which is important in the synthesis of mitochondrial proteins by bringing in amino acids, thus leading to some of the issues associated with this disorder. There are other mutated mitochondrial genes that can lead to this disorder, they're just not as common. What are some common symptoms? Well, common symptoms include seizures, dizziness and vomiting, headaches, speech, hearing, and vision problems, and muscle loss. Alongside this, there are two characteristic symptoms, lactic acidosis and stroke-like episodes. We can also see brain shrinkage. Let's look closer at lactic acidosis. Lactic acidosis means that there is a buildup of lactic acid in the blood to an extent that the kidneys and liver are unable to get rid of it. This can lead to the pH of the blood becoming more acidic. This is an issue because it can lead to some of the common symptoms, such as fatigue. Moving on to the stroke-like episodes. The stroke-like episodes are problematic because they can lead to cognitive damage due to their effects on the brain. This can in turn lead to dementia. How do we diagnose this disease then? Well, one way is through genetic testing. If the mother is a carrier, we can determine if the child has the disorder. This can also be used to assess if it occurred spontaneously. This is done by getting a sample of, for example, skin or urine. Another way is through brain imaging, such as MRI. There are common impacts on the brain, such as shrinkage in the parietal and occipital lobes in this disorder that can be identified. Another way is by examining lactic acid levels. This can be done by testing of the cerebrospinal fluid or, more commonly, blood. This disorder currently has no cure, therefore treatment is important. First, to combat seizure symptoms, one could take seizure medications. To combat the muscle weakness, some exercise can be helpful. Cochlear implants could assist with hearing loss. And finally, a very common treatment is supplementation. Some of the most known ones are L-arginine and L-citrulline. This disorder is still new as the first reported cases of Melas were only in 1975. With that being said, there's a lot of future research that can be done. One example includes something called gene therapy. In gene therapy, viral vectors are used. This is to replace the mutated genes with repaired versions. With Melas, genetic counseling is also something beneficial. Here, you talk to a genetic counselor to understand your genetic history so you can plan accordingly. I have attached some resources from the United Mitochondrial Disease Foundation if anyone wants to further read or needs help with this disorder. I've included both their website as well as their phone number in case anyone wants to reach out. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that this video was educational and helped you learn more about Melas.